Hey Optimancers, Chris here. One of the strongest options available to a melee character is the grapple and then carry and drag mechanics. Shoving, it's often also a viable tactic, and generally if you're good at grappling, then you're good at shoving as well. But why is this good? What do we have to achieve with our builds to make this work? And most importantly, how exactly does it work? Hi, if you like the content you're seeing and you'd be interested in supporting it, you can do so with my Patreon, which is linked in the video description. Today I would like to thank some of my top level patrons: Airhead, Alex Sequendo Vang, Alexander Baldwin, Alex R, Rob Reichelt, Awesome Face, Barbar, Ben Potts, Benjamin, Bloody Nine, Brett McDowell, Atherzone, CJ, Chris Coons, Christian Wyndham, Unknown Watcher, Daniel Sturgeon, Dank Train, Dash Panther, Dave Peters, David Edgar, David F, David Lotz, David W. Skibbins, Dewey Cheatham and Howe, and DM Michael 7000. Thank you all so much for your support. Let's get started. Well, the rules do help us here, but they also leave us with some unanswered questions. Let's go over the mechanics. Okay, so let's quickly review the grappling rules, and we'll see what they tell us and what they don't. Grappling appears in Chapter 9 of the Player's Handbook. Here's what it says. Grappling. When you want to grab a creature or wrestle with it, you can use the attack action to make a special melee attack, a grapple. If you're able to make multiple attacks with the attack action, this attack replaces one of them. So right off, we're seeing how extra attack can be helpful here, so that the grapple attempt doesn't use our entire attack action. However, this does lead to our first question in how this is supposed to work. What the rules tell us here is that we can use the attack action to attempt a grapple, and if we can make multiple attacks with our attack action, we can replace one of them with a grapple attempt. What's not clear here is if we have multiple attacks, whether we can replace more than one of them with a grapple attempt. The rules tell us we can do it once, but they don't say whether it's once per attack or once per attack action. So we're left trying to figure out the intent, and Jeremy Crawford has let us know what the intent is. Jeremy Crawford, Grapple Shove says I can replace one of my attacks. With two attacks, can I shove, or can I replace only one of them? And he said if you take the attack action and have multiple attacks, you can replace any of them with Grapple Shove. So the intention of the rule here is we can attempt one grapple or shove per attack. But as usual, when the rules don't specify, it doesn't hurt to verify that your DM is reading it the same way. Back to the rules. Target of your grapple must be no more than one size larger than you and must be within your reach. So here's an important restriction. This means a small size character is going to face more cases where an enemy is just too big to grapple than a medium sized creature will. And if you can get your size up to huge, you could conceivably grapple any creature in the game. Using at least one free hand, you try to seize the target by making a grapple check instead of an attack roll. A strength athletics check is contested by the target's strength athletics or dexterity acrobatics check the target chooses the ability to use. You succeed automatically if the target is incapacitated. If you succeed, you subject the target to the grappled condition. The condition specifies the things that end it, and you can release the target whenever you like, no action required. Okay, so we need to have a hand free, though, if you're a Loxodon, you don't, but for most characters you do. So if we have a weapon and a shield, we would need to sheath or drop the weapon to attempt the grapple. Presumably, if you're holding your weapon in two hands, you could at least hold it in one hand while attempting a grapple with the other, but you'll be unable to wield that weapon if it has the two-handed property. If it has the versatile property, you could still wield it in one hand, but you would need to use the base weapon damage rather than the versatile property damage. Our target gets to pick strength athletics or dexterity acrobatics to resist the grapple attempt, but we should note that these are ability checks, not saving throws. So a creature would not be able to use legendary resistance to resist a grapple attempt. We don't have a choice though. We must use a strength athletics check, so if we want to be good at grappling, we need a good bonus to that ability check. And if we're successful, the opponent gains the grappled condition. Let's check out that condition at the back of our player's handbook. Grappled. The grappled creature's speed becomes 0, and it can't benefit from any bonus to its speed. The condition ends if the grappler is incapacitated. The condition also ends if an effect removes the grappled creature from the reach of the grappler or grappling effect. such as when a creature is hurled away by a Thunderwave spell. So the creature's speed becomes 0. This might not seem like much, but it can be potentially devastating, but we'll come back to this more later. The other thing we should note is that if an effect removes the grappled creature from the reach of the grappler, the condition ends. This means there are a lot of ways for a grapple to be broken. We'll need to get back to that as well. Okay, next is escaping a grapple. A grappled creature can use its action to escape. To do so, it must succeed on a strength athletics or dexterity acrobatics check contested by your strength athletics check. So, I mean, if a grappled creature is reduced to using its action to attempt the same contest it already lost to try to escape, well, that's really bad for the grappled creature. Best case, it uses up its action. It's liable to provoke an opportunity attack if it wants to move away from the would-be grappler to prevent being grappled again. If we can get enemy creatures into the position where they need to attempt this escape a grapple action, we're in great shape. Then the rules go on to moving a grappled creature. And this one is the really, really good one. When you move, you can drag or carry the grappled creature with you, but your speed is halved unless the creature is 2 or more sizes smaller than you. Now this is huge, and one of the best aspects of grappling a creature. When you move, you can drag or carry the grappled creature with you, and it has a movement speed of 0. So where you move it, well, that's where it's stuck. Speed 0. However, once again, I have some questions about this that the rules don't cover. And this time, no Jeremy Crawford tweets I'm aware of to clear things up. First off, it says, when you move, you can drag or carry the grappled creature. So when it says, when you move, that kind of seems to imply to me that they're talking about the move part of your turn, as in you using your movement. However, I don't think that's crystal clear, because what if you're moved? Like, what if someone's grappling and dragging you? Can you drag along your grapple target? What if you're mounted and moved by your mount? Can you drag along your grapple creature? Being that it says when you move and that your movement is halved, I think it probably means that you're using your movement to take advantage of this aspect of a grapple, but I do think it is open to interpretation. Here's one thing, though, that just isn't covered at all. So here's my character, and they've grappled this kobold. So I know if I move this way, that my speed is halved and the kobold is dragged along with me. So that's fine. I get that. But what if I move this way? Does the kobold stay to the right of me? Like, do they go up to here? Or do I end up dragging it behind me? Or does it stay where it was in the first place? I mean, can I choose? That's not covered by the rules. So it's going to be a DM ruling. Next, what if I want to move the kobold over to this side of me? Can I do that? Technically, I'm not moving at all in this situation. Well, the rules say I can move a grappled creature when I move. So maybe not. But what if I do move? Can I swing it around to this side then? Or what if I move towards the kobold? Can I push it in front of me? The rules just don't cover this. So I'm going to say how I handle this situation as a DM, but this is my ruling. This is how I rule it. The rules do not cover this. So this is how I handle it. First, if I want to move this grapple creature, I have 2 options. First, I can move at half rate and the creature will move with me. So if I move up to here, then it will move up to here. So the direction that it was from me will stay the same. If the player asks, hey, could I drag the kobold behind me instead? Then I will allow that as well. However, if the player wants to move the kobold to another position around the character, so let's say they say, I want to move the kobold up to here, I will allow that too, but they have to use their movement, which is halved. So basically, the kobold starts here. This would require 10 feet of movement, and this would require 10 more feet of movement to move the kobold there. So although the character didn't move, I would charge them 20 feet of movement to move the kobold there. If the grapple creature was more than one size class lower than the grappler, then I waive that movement cost altogether. I figure if you're swinging around, a pixie, you don't have to use a lot of effort to do so. But what I'm showing you here are my rulings, because That's just kind of what makes sense to me. Just know the rules don't say one way or another. So if we run it so that you can do exactly only what the rules say, then I would guess the position of the grappled creature in regards to the grappler wouldn't change. So if we're grappling this kobold up here, no matter where we moved, it would remain right on top of us. Okay, so let's move on to shoving. So shoving a creature. Using the attack action, you can make a special melee attack to shove a creature, either to knock it prone or push it away from you. If you're able to make multiple attacks with the attack action, this attack replaces one of them. So, same as grapple, the intention here is if you were to have multiple attacks, you could replace any or all of them with shoves. The target must be no more than one size larger than you and must be within your reach. Instead of making an attack roll, you make a strength athletics check, contested by the target's strength athletics or dexterity acrobatics check. Target chooses which ability to use. This should all sound really familiar. You succeed automatically if the target is incapacitated. If you succeed, you either knock the target prone or you push it 5 feet away from you. So our applicable targets and our chance of success are identical to grappling, except instead of imposing the grapple condition, we knock it prone or we push it 5 feet away from us. Okay, so that's what the rules tell us. Now let's go over why we would want to utilize the shove option. Okay, well, first let's say we're fighting a flying black dragon, and we have a flight option, and we fly up to the dragon, and we shove it prone. Well, according to the rules on flying, unless you have hover or being held aloft by magic, which isn't the case here, it immediately falls to the ground. So it would take falling damage and land on the ground prone where your allies can pounce on it. Now, it's interesting that grappling actually probably does the exact same thing, because a successful grapple reduces the flying creature's speed to 0, and then it falls, likely falling out of your reach, and then landing on the ground, taking falling damage, at which point it falls prone, and your allies can pounce on it. Now, you could certainly ask your DM if you could just hang on to the grappled flying creature so they don't fall. I mean, you've grappled them, so presumably you are holding on to them, but the rules actually don't cover that option. So it's going to be up to your DM if that's an option for you or not. Next, let's talk about dragging. So this is one of my favorite force movement options. Force movement options always have limitations. Maybe they're limited in size. Maybe they provide a saving throw. Maybe they limit the direction of movement. Maybe they only move the target 5 feet. Grappling really only has the limit on size. And we can find ways to build around that when we make our character build. If the recent Unearthed Arcana is any indication, more options may be on the way. Even with a standard 30-foot movement speed, we can grapple or carry a target 15 feet in any direction we like. No saving throw. This can be fantastic. Mainly here we're talking about areas of effect. So we drag a creature out of the Spirit Guardians and then drag them back in, and then they take another instance of damage instantly. Or we drag a creature out of the Wall of Fire and drag them back in. Same thing. They're going to take an extra instance of damage. Cloud of Daggers. Same thing. Wall of Ice. Same thing. Then there's the creature that escaped the web. We drag them back into the web. Or the Evert's Tentacles. Or the Sleet Storm. Or the Transmute Rock. I mean, eventually, drag a creature through a prismatic wall. You can do that more than once on the same turn, which is going to vaporize most things. So what we're seeing here is that grapple and dragging isn't just effective, but it's also a character that is employing teamwork. And as we get into higher levels, legendary resistance is going to be a big thing, but it's no defense here. So this can be an effective strategy at higher levels as well. Now, with the grappling and dragging being so effective, why would we ever shove? Well, there's 3 main reasons why we might consider a shove instead of a grapple. The first is that we've already grappled the creature and they already have a speed of 0. So if we shove them prone, they don't have the movement they would need to stand up. So they're stuck prone until they break the grapple. This would give us advantage on our attacks and them disadvantage on their attacks. That's a huge advantage. The second reason we might shove is that unlike grappling, it doesn't require a free hand. So if our hands are full, we can't grapple, but shoving is still an option. And the third, it's a bit weird, and, I wouldn't necessarily count on this, but several creatures in the game are immune to the grapple condition. Like we have this ghost here. We can see condition immunities: charmed, exhaustion, frightened, grappled, paralyzed, petrified, poisoned, prone, and restrained. But you know what? If we wanted to push it 5 feet, it's not immune to shove. So we could potentially shove it into the wall of fire. This one, although not prohibited by the rules, I think you should probably check with your DM. I know if I was the DM, I'd be a bit iffy on whether it makes sense that you could shove an incorporeal creature, but it's not prohibited by the rules. So next, how can we make this work? Well, it's actually really easy to make a grappling character. So let's say we're focusing on strength. So at level 1, we have a 16 strength and we're proficient in athletics. So that's a +5 to our check. And let's say we're fighting an ogre. This is a tough fight for a first level party. Ogres are large size, they're strong, but they aren't proficient in athletics. We actually have over a 50% chance of landing the grapple on this ogre right at level 1. But we can do better. Advantage on strength checks isn't hard to get. I mean, we can get it at level 1 as well. A barbarian rage has it, and that's a first level feature. So now our chance of succeeding on that grapple against this ogre, 80%, 80, at level 1 against an ogre. As we increase in levels, if we get expertise in athletics, we can be almost certain to win these checks. And here's a trap I sometimes see builds fall into. So you have a good strength, then you get your expertise in athletics, then you get a way to get advantage on the check, and then you keep looking for ways to improve that grapple. Stop. Stop right there. You're going to win the grapple. You have succeeded on making a grappling build already. You don't need to do anything else. No matter what you're fighting, you're almost guaranteed success with just those 3 things. Good ability score, expertise, advantage. It's done. You're going to win grapple checks almost all the time. And there is no advantage to you to winning the opposed check by more than 1. So it doesn't matter if you beat the creature by 1 or you beat it by 20. The next thing we should be worried about is our size. A medium creature can't grapple anything bigger than large size, and that's probably fine at low levels. But as levels increase, monster sizes increase too. Giant's Might, honestly, is the easiest option. 3 levels of Rune Knight and we can become large sized as a bonus action. This gives us our strength check advantage as well. Eventually, a straight class Rune Knight becomes huge when they use this feature, but that's 18th level. You'll face gargantuan creatures before then. Enlarge Reduce, that's a pretty obvious option. Now this takes an action to cast and it requires concentration. But if you've already used Giant Smite and then have Enlarge Reduce cast on you, you'll increase to huge size. Now the size limitations don't affect you at all. Wild Shape, that's another option. A giant constrictor snake, for example, has a decent number of hit points and it's huge sized and would be available as a wild shape form at level 6 to a Moon Druid. There are some scaling issues with Druid wild shape though, but Moon Druid and Barbarian, that's a solid multi-class. And if all this stuff sounds to you like I'm thinking right now how to make a good grapple build and then present it on this channel, well, actually I'm not, because I already know the build I'm going to be presenting. Here's the thing about monk movement speed I've always said. Movement is great if you have something good to do with it. In my Monk Sucks video, this is exactly what I said. Maneuverability is good if you have something effective you can do with that maneuverability. And here's the problem. We have a monk that delivers the worst damage of any class in the game. We have a monk that doesn't have a great armor class. We have a monk that is not even in the top half of classes when it comes to being able to control the battlefield. And now we give that monk a bunch of maneuverability. What are they supposed to do with it? And only if monks had something good to do with their speed, you know, like dragging a grappled enemy. But making a good monk grappler has always been a challenge. I mean, fitting strength on your monk is pretty much impossible. And I've figured out a solution. So we will be grappling successfully and then dragging with monk speed. And we'll have a few other tricks up our sleeve. Enough, I think, to make yet one more monk build viable enough for me to present it on this channel. I hope you'll join me for that. Otherwise, until next time, I am going to sit back, relax, and have some fun. D&D is for everyone. Thanks, everybody, and I'll talk to you soon.